Good gosh.
Hey everybody, I am here with fellow survival horror enthusiast Michael Huber to talk about Ghostwire Tokyo. I recently got to play through the first two chapters, and to my surprise, there were many more hours in those first two chapters than I was expecting. I got to see a lot more than I was expecting to. The beginning and chapter 1 went by so fast, it was still like the tutorial, and I was like, oh no, is this preview just going to be tutorial stuff? No, chapter 2 super opens up, super expansive.
Nice.
But the first thing that I wanted to say is I had a great time with this game.
Nice. Good. That's all anybody wants to hear leading up to this game, Ben.
Yes, if that's all you need to hear, then job done. I had a really great time. The other thing that I actually really want to stress, and I did it just because I was like, oh, maybe I should. I played through the prelude before I did this.
Essential.
I would actually very, very strongly recommend that if you plan on digging into Ghostwire Tokyo, you do that prelude. It's about 40 minutes long. It really gives you context for characters in a way that even in the first two chapters, I think scenes will mean a lot more to you having gone through that prelude. So I would strongly recommend that.
Awesome.
You can actually make a bunch of different choices in the prelude to get like elaborations on different characters. I did only just go through the prelude once, but even that was helpful.
Wild.
So Ghostwire Tokyo is an interesting beast. I think if you think of Evil Within, right, and kind of how it builds upon classic survival horror, Ghostwire Tokyo is kind of that. There's definitely stealth. Like, you can skulk around the city and you can get insta-kill on these demons. But it's also much more action-oriented in a way. And so your main tool is ethereal weaving. And you have different elements that kind of serve different things. So wind is like your standard bullets. They come out fast. You can charge them up to hit 2 at once and then 3 at once. There's like water, which is basically like a shotgun, like it's an arc meant for close range. And then there's fire, where you don't get a lot of ammunition, but it can deal a ton of damage. There's a bunch of different ways, depending on how you upgrade your character, where you can get ammo back for your ethereal weaving. But you also have a bow, and your bow is really, really powerful, but it's not as easy to get arrows back. And so you kind of have to balance that with all of your other weapons.
And all that stuff feels good to use?
The
impact?
It does. It does feel really good. I think the animations of the hands, just like you just go...
Yeah, visually it looks awesome.
Yeah, visually that's really cool. I think the design of the spirits that you're fighting are really, really good. So, like, there's this big, like, fat salaryman who will use an umbrella to defend himself. And, like, you can puncture through that umbrella and like it can become like frayed and stuff. And then there's there's schoolgirl spirits that don't have heads that will like flip kick and they're dancing all around. And
so it seems like there's a good amount of powers and enemies and moves. There's a good variety.
Yeah, and I think you're touching on something that I really want to emphasize. I really value games that kind of get to the meat of things quickly and let you define your own fun quickly, and Ghostwire Tokyo absolutely does that. Like I said, it doesn't take too long to get to chapter 2, and before long you're like, all right, where do I want to put skill points? How do I want to define my character? Do I want to run around and do all these side missions? Do I want to focus on the story? Like you kind of get access to the open world quickly, and what's cool about the open world is you actually have a ton of freedom to explore it. So there are these tengu that fly above, and you can grapple up to them. But it's not like one story. You're like, you grapple onto them, you like shoot up into the sky like skyscraper high, and you're jumping across rooftops. And you also have this glide, and so there's a ton of to use the meme word, verticality to what you're exploring and what you can find.
Got it.
Yeah.
So, like, discovering things just as you traverse the world, or were you like looking up things on the map and then like going there? Or did you just kind of stumble upon things like when you're
the way
around?
that the world is? I would definitely say this is very much a map game where like I was like, okay, I want to do all of the side quests, and each side quest has its own story. Like one that I want to illustrate is you go into this person who has died, and you're going to like cleanse their spirit, but they're a hoarder. And so like their entire apartment is just like filled with trash, and you go up the stairs, you can't even see the stairs because it's so caked with trash. And so there's stuff like that gives the side missions personality and things like that. But
That's fantastic.
As you're going to these markers, so let's say it's a side quest, let's say it's a Torii gate you want to cleanse so you can reveal more of the map, you just run into stuff, right? So you have these like paper dolls essentially, and there are spirits floating in the world, and you can suck them up, and you can hold like 10 or 12 at a time, and you have to go to a phone booth and you could cash them in, and the more you cash in, the more experience and money that you get. So like you'll go to a side quest, you'll be like, oh, I want to clear this group of enemies, or oh, I want to go after these spirits and capture them, or like there's some corruption that I want to clear, or maybe I want to refill up on my ethereal weaving ammo. And so it's just one of those games where like you intend to go from A to B, but you kind of go from A to A1 to A2 a little bit.
I love that feeling. Ben, one of my favorite things about Evil Within 2 is the combination of kind of the open world and then these linear parts. Was that conveyed? Because you said the side missions have like cool stories with them. Does it feel like there's this huge open world, and then when you kind of do a mission, it's more linear and more crafted? Cool.
So both with the story missions and with the side missions, it's very much like the side missions may sort of take place in the open world, but they do feel, for the most part, way more crafted, more like this is the story that we want to tell, which I like. And the side missions, I would say, for the most part, were relatively short, but there was this one side mission where it was kind of annoying but kind of cool, where I had to gather data on the moon, and so I had to get to 3 high points in the city, but like getting to these tall points was like the whole challenge of the mission. So I'd be like running around the streets being like, can I get up here? Is there a tango up there that I can grapple onto? And so I like when the environment itself becomes a challenge. You know, it's not just like you see a marker on your map and you can go there with no issue. I like that a lot. And so that's really cool. I will say, I definitely got to a point, like I don't want to overhype the combat. It is pretty simplistic. And so, like, yes, enemies will have different moves, and you may have, like, different methods of taking them out. But it's very much like, okay, I'm going to lock on with L2 and then I'm going to blast away. And so there was simplicity to it. You could also, like, parry enemies. The parry window felt pretty generous. And I was getting to a point where I was like, okay, I like this game, but there are so many side missions, and like the combat is relatively simple. I was starting to feel that repetition creep in, and I was getting a little worried. But then the game kind of pulled the rug out from under me, and I don't want to say what happens because I think it's a really cool moment that's surprising. And suddenly I had to play the game in a different way than I was playing before, and I felt like it was almost like the designers were aware of what I was going through and came in with the right thing at the right time. So
awesome. Yeah, because that was the only kind of concern I had just from the previews and the trailers was like, you know, the action does look, like you said, kind of simple, just mashing out your powers, throwing things out there. It looks flashy and fun, but also like pretty simple. Yeah,
so I played on normal, and this was definitely one of those instances where I was like, I bet I'd be having even more fun if I put it on hard. And so I think if you are pretty experienced at open world games or action games or even survival horror games, I think you might benefit by bumping the difficulty up. I will say
some of those Evil Within difficulties are insane. So I wonder how crazy things get in this.
This definitely felt a lot easier to me than Evil Within, at a glance anyway. No, you know me.
Yeah.
Something that is delightful about this game is it is so unabashedly Japanese to
Hell
like
yeah.
the smallest detail. So you
The
heal
little cat
your
shop.
yes, a lot of what you heal yourself with is a bunch of various Japanese food, and what's so cool is it will give you like an entire description for each individual food thing. And so if you enjoy
Perfect, I
learning
do.
about that stuff and digging into that stuff,
Yes,
it
man.
really dives into certain aspects of the culture in a very cool way. And so, as somebody who loves that stuff, it was certainly a treat for me.
That's great.
I also really liked the story. I think some of the setup is a little generic, but without giving too much away, you are sort of possessed by the spirit named KK, and he's sort of this grizzled cop, very Sebastian vibe.
Nice.
And then he's in the body of like this younger man, and just their banter. I always love the like wizened hard ass with the more like new rookie dynamic. I'm always a sucker
Totally.
for that.
Same.
And I think this game does that pretty well.
Awesome. Are there, like, for the open world, is it, because you said there's a shop, is it like everywhere is dangerous, or are there little, like, is it just the shops that are kind of like the safe areas where you can just hang out, buy things, or are there like populated areas with humans? I know the trailers show kind of like
There are no
nobody,
humans.
right? Yeah,
there's no
nobody.
humans.
Okay.
Like that's
So is
one
it
of
like
the-
constant danger, like everywhere you go? Like the
No, a very good question. Something that this game is very strong artistically because I love when you're walking around and like everybody's vanished, and so you'll just see piles of clothes on the ground, kind of emphasizing how desolate this place is, which is neat. I wouldn't say that every place is dangerous. Even in like you think about the Evil Within 2 open world, I think I felt a little bit more under constant threat than I do here. So you'll hear like a sound when like a group of enemies is nearby, and that will kind of be your cue. And you can either avoid them or take them on. But I would also say there's plenty of stretches where you're just kind of going to a place you don't really have to worry about fights. Granted, this is only the first 2 chapters, so that could change later on in the game.
Cool. And traversal, all that feels really good. You mentioned the glider.
Yeah.
The grapple hook.
Yes.
Can you combo traversal and combat, or is did you discover any weird things like that? Like,
No.
is zipping just for traversal only, not like
Yeah.
grapple combat stuff?
Yeah, I didn't do any sort of grappling, but I guess a layer in combat that I didn't mention that you just made me realize is there's kind of 2 ways that you can deal with enemies. Each spirit that you're fighting, they have a core, and what's so cool is as you're blasting them with your powers, their core will open up, and you will like throw this wire into them, and you want to yank their core out to kill them. But doing that takes time, right? So other enemies can come and interrupt you as you're trying to take out the core. And so that's a really fun, like, do I go for it? Am I under danger? I love that. And then there's, in your skill tree, you can make that process faster. And like over time, I was like, yeah, that'll be really useful. And I love that. I love going into a skill tree being like, oh, I've already encountered situations where doing this would be a huge benefit. So
Awesome.
yeah, my experience with it so far has been almost exactly like the Evil Within, where like I adore the Evil Within, particularly Evil Within 1, in a way that like I don't think the Evil Within 1 is like game of the year, or like it's certainly rough in some aspects, but those rough aspects make me like it even more. Like it just has so much charm to it. That vibe is totally emanating off of Ghostwire Tokyo, where like it just has so much personality. And I was talking about its strong artistic design, like just the design of some of these enemies. There's this like woman in white that has these giant scissors. She's
I saw her
like,
in the trailer.
Yes,
Yeah.
she's like the hardest enemy I fought, and she will rip you to shreds. It's great. And then there are moments where you'll be going through very Evil Within style, like the environment will change. Like suddenly the room that you're in is like upside down, or like the colors will change, or all of that. And so it's just very flashy and distinct. It has so much personality, so much charm. I don't necessarily think it's going to be the absolute best game that people play this year, but it's one that I think like is so endearing that I think the people that do get into it are going to love it to pieces. Yeah.
Heck yeah. Can't wait, man.
For sure. Any other questions that you have?
No, you touched on combat, exploration, and the atmosphere. I mean, that's the most important thing to me.
I don't want to give too much away, but I don't want to forget anything. Where's the fine line?
It's my favorite aspects of the Evil Within are the atmosphere, the combat, the stealth, just like being in their places, and it just looks. I just can't wait to explore Tokyo.
Yeah, you actually do bring up a good point. I do think anybody going in maybe looking for more Evil Within, it's definitely not that. It is a very different game. It certainly is not leaning in on the raw horror aspects as much as something like the Evil Within. It's faster paced than the Evil Within. It's more actiony. So I think if you can let go of that and just sort of accept it for what it is, you'll be in a good space, because it does have some stylistic similarities, but very different at the same time.
Heck yeah.
Cool. Well, like I told you before this, I was so excited to talk about it. I'm glad I got to talk about it with you.
I can't wait.
Really pumped to hear your thoughts on it once you get into it. And thanks everybody so much for listening.
汚れに囚われていたのか。こういう奴らも多そうだな。